Seahawks Today is your off-season headquarters for the latest happenings on your favorite team. With the coaching search, trades, free agency, the draft, and more, we got you covered each and every day here on Seahawks Today. The bosses have put a challenge out there. They said, Jonesy, there's no way in hell you can get 50 subs off today's video. And I said, you know what? We're going to prove you wrong. We're going to do it right now. Subscribe to Seahawks Today for the best Seahawks coverage on YouTube. Could Pete Carroll be headed to Atlanta? The Ringer's Bill Simmons seems to think so. That's what we're talking about here on this edition of Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. Pete Carroll, we don't know what his next stop will be just yet, but Bill Simmons is suggesting that the Atlanta Falcons are going to make this move to hire Pete as their next head coach, and it's intriguing, right? Atlanta, another NFC team, a Falcons team that's got a good young core. Does that make sense for Atlanta to hire a guy like Pete Carroll? Recently, in an interview with Seattle Sports Radio, Pete Carroll talked about his future and trying to chart his next path of sorts, and he made it very clear that he's open to all possibilities and still believes he can coach, saying, I've got plenty of energy for it and thought and willingness, but I can't imagine that there's a place, the right one. I don't know. I'm open to everything, but I'm not holding my breath on that. There's a lot of world out there, and I'm excited about challenging and going after it. If that happens, that happens. We'll see. I don't know what to tell you about that yet. Now, at this point in time, the Atlanta Falcons, along with the other job openings, none of them have requested for an interview with Pete Carroll for their opening positions. And it does not seem like that there is interest in Pete Carroll among these other teams and their coaching positions, which tells me that the Seahawks, very much so, made the right decision to ultimately move on from Pete Carroll. We already thought that, and now you look around the league. If no one else is interested in Pete, then that kind of confirms what we're thinking here, because you have to measure your head coach, how they stack up with the rest of the NFL. And the rest of the NFL is saying, we're not interested in Pete, then that kind of reaffirms what we've been talking about. Pete Carroll removed as the Seahawks head coach after a disappointing 9-8 season where they missed the playoffs, and Carroll has not won a playoff game since the 2019 season. And this advisor role that he's in, the specifics are unknown what that exactly entails. What we do know is that Pete Carroll is not involved in the Seattle Seahawks coaching search, that he does not have any say, is not giving any advisement towards who the next Seattle Seahawks head coach should be, according to Carroll. Now, as far as the Atlanta job goes, I disagree with Simmons. I would be surprised if Pete Carroll ultimately gets that job. I think Bill Belichick is ultimately going to be the next head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Belichick already getting a second interview. Arthur Blank trying to make a big splash. I think that's the direction Atlanta is going to go. Now, what about Pete Carroll? What is in store for him? We'll explain more in just a second. But first, what do you think? Should the Falcons go after Pete Carroll and make him their next head coach? It's our pinned comment today. Let us know what you think. Y for yes, N for no. Should Pete Carroll be the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons? Let me know what you think. Today's show is sponsored by our friends at Factor. I got to tell you, I really love me some Factor meals. A bachelor like myself, I love something that's easy to make, tastes good, it's good for you. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door with over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie-smart, vegan, plus veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons. You'll have a ton of nutritious, flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Forget frantic lunch preps and rush dinners. Factor's 2-minute meals are your secret weapon in the new year. Fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals, all delivered right to your door. When things get hectic, Factor is flexible. Change your order up every week with plans of 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. Head to factormeals.com/SeahawksChat50 and use code SeahawksChat50 to get 50% off. That's code SeahawksChat50 at factormeals.com/SeahawksChat50 to get 50% off. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Factor Meals. Good. All right. So, Pete Carroll, I think it's safe to say, just kind of reading between the lines, what Pete has had to say and how this organization is going forward, that the relationship between Pete and the Seahawks has soured. Not with the fan base or even the players, for that matter, but those that are calling the shots, specifically ownership, with how this was handled, from Pete publicly saying that he wanted to remain the Seahawks head coach, to a couple days later finding out that he was losing his job and then being put in an advisor role, but not any specifics on what that is. There's some disconnect here. And yes, I agree. I've said before, it was the right call, but what this is, of what entails the future, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Pete actually does stay around in this advisor role. Look at this, what Pete said a few days ago with the same interview with Seattle Sports. He said, the difficult part is, if you guys could know, it's really hard talking about ownership. They're not football people. They're not coaches. And so to get the real details of it, it's really difficult for other people. So Pete flat out calls out ownership, says they're not football people. That was a shot when he said that a few days ago. And I just don't expect Pete to be around much. I think of it like when NBC said that they were giving Bob Costas a senior role, and he was out in no time, and all of a sudden he's doing work for MLB Network and CNN. Remember when Al Michaels was supposed to call a playoff game for NBC this year, and he found out of the blue that, oh, wait, no, you're not calling that playoff game. That's going to be Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge instead. There's some hurt feelings based on the way that this all was handled. And although we do believe this was the right call, this could have been handled better. And maybe time will heal all wounds here, but there's something going on. Now, I think that there's a very good chance Pete stays around in Seattle and provides some advisement of some sorts, but maybe not what you think. Pete's son, Brennan, was recently named the new offensive coordinator and O-line coach for the Washington Huskies. Jedd Fisch, who I think is fantastic, comes over from Arizona. He is the new head coach. He brings Brennan over with him to be his OC and offensive line coach. And I got to tell you, Washington Husky fans got to be real excited. I love this hire. Bringing Brennan with him makes a lot of sense joining the staff there. And Brennan, of course, worked with Pete previously as an offensive assistant from 2015 to 2020. He's well on his way to being a very good coach in his own right. And with Pete living just across the lake from the Washington football facility, I think we're going to see Pete around that Washington football program. With his son there, I think that you'll probably see Pete working more with the Huskies than we will with the Seahawks, quite frankly. I think that's going to be more his fit. And we know Pete was an excellent college coach, one of the best college coaches in the history of the game here. That's where I see more so his fit. There's still some hurt feelings. There's going to be a change of the guard and a new head coach that they'll want to establish and let them run their culture and do things their way. I think that's what Pete's looking at. It's not a job with the Falcons. It's not really working with the Seahawks organization that much. I think his future is being there for his son, and whether it's practices or being at games, whatever, that's what I expect is Pete and Brennan to be involved there with that Washington Huskies organization. What do you guys think, though? What will Pete Carroll do next? Will it be just hang around with the Huskies or with the Seahawks, or could he be the Falcons' next head coach? What do you guys think? What is next for Pete Carroll? Weigh in the comment section. Tell us what you think. Subscribe now as we have you covered talking about your Seattle Seahawks each and every day here on Seahawks Today. Lock it in. Subscribe now for free, and we'll see you next time.